Yeah, I'm the
Akiva,
host.
you're that.
Go on, done.
You have
Okay.
to start by telling Dave that you specifically saved the Mishnah for him.
That's correct. But first we have to start with the sponsors. So today's sponsors are Reb Mordechai Tzvi Lebovitz. Let me read the whole nusach, and SHMIEL URMAN and Family, and CHAIM ZVI is doing it I have to ad-lib this because I don't have the nusach in front of me, to thank Akiva and to wish Akiva every bracha bkol milah d'meitav, and the wind should blow in every direction necessary to make Akiva benefit and everybody else around to benefit, such as the 649 ticket that Dovi bought. It should be masliach, and it should scatter everywhere, and there should still be, shouldn't scatter like $1 here, $1 there. It should scatter in big lump sums everywhere.
Maybe next week.
Okay, there's Hashem Yisborach. And also, it's being sponsored. The broadcast is being sponsored by SHMIEL URMAN, not legal nishmas for carrot. We should not have a legal nishmas. All those who are healthy should stay healthy, and all those who are not feeling well should have a refuah shleima.
Amen.
And also by MEYER TENENBAUM as well, I believe. Right? MEYER
Yes.
TENENBAUM, he is sponsoring for all weekly nishmas, Reb Hershel Tenenbaum. Could you help me with his name? Reb Tzvi?
Yeah. Mordechai Tzvi
Reb Mordechai Tzvi, Dov Dovid.
Yeah. I have to tell you that Hershel always recognized a bargain. The amount of play and airplay that he got out of this sponsorship was unbelievable. Baruch Hashem. It went a lot further than it
every single shir and every single discussion we have reinforces what he told us.
Correct.
Davening kenech in daheim.
That's right. That's right.
So, as Shleima Feintach mentioned, that we stopped early yesterday because we wanted to save this Mishnah and Gemara for David Zolti, because you asked us a couple of days ago that Pishton is not eights. So why does the Gemara say Kol Yotze min eights? Pishton is not an eights. So that's exactly the subject matter of what we're starting the Gemara with today.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Zok the Gemara. Zok the Mishnah. We'll start from the Mishnah. Kol Yotze min eights. Anything that comes from the wood, ein madliken boy, you cannot plant with Elo Pishton. Pishton seems to the Mishnah seems to think it's Yotze min eights, but it's an exception to the rule that ein madliken boy. And the Mishnah says ein madliken boy lasus psila mi canvas ubeged canvas. Tosfos jumps on this right away. Rashi says the last plot as well as here. Going to canvas for Tzemer Geffen. Rebbe does not feel that that's what it could mean. If in fact canvas and Tzemer Geffen were what Rashi identifies as you should not be able to use it to light. People use it, and it actually works quite well. When we read they're not called Yotzim, they're seeds. So he learns it's a seed. So why did it say it just means it creates. The Gemara is going to say really Pishton in fact is not eights. The reason why the Mishnah has to say Pishton you could use even though other eights you can't is because of a pasuk that the Gemara will bring that refers to Pishton with the word eights, even though, like David Zolti said, technically it's not an eights at all. So let's see the Gemara right here. So another thing to know about Pishton, now there's a Shiloh Rishon what this means, but Pashup Pshat is as follows. We know that anything that covers over a mace, if you come under that cover, so you're underneath an oil hamace, you become tummy. The question is, does the oil itself become tummy? Well, if the oil is mechubar lakarka, it won't become tummy. So it just tells us that if the oil happens to be made out of pishton, then even the oil itself becomes tummy. So we're discussing not the too much oil that's someone underneath the oil, that we know for sure they become tummy. The question here is, does the oil itself become tummy? And the Mishnah tells us if it's made out of pishton, then it will become tummy. Zok the Gemara. We know the pishton it creates. Where in the world did you get this from? That pishton is an eighth. It's not an eighth. V'hi halosam hagaga. Rochav took up the meraglim, who was Yeshua and Kalev. Meraglim Yeshua and Kalev, right? She took them up. Now, who were the meraglim? Do we know who the meraglim were in Yeshua?
Pinchas.
Yeah.
Pinchas.
It was Pinchas?
Yeah, one of them.
So she took them up and she
Pinchas
hid them
and
in her attic. It was Pinchas. She hid them in her attic. And in what did she hide them? But hit the name the Pishte Ha'itz. She hid them in flax, and the pasuk in the Navi refers to those as wood. And it's only because of that the Mishnah saw the need to tell us that Pishtan is different than wood, even though we know Pishtan is not wood. Dr. Gemara Vaitek. We're getting down to a whole new sugya again of Tumas Tahira about Tumas oil. We're also going to learn about fantasy items such as unicorns. Everybody always asks, are unicorns real? We're soon going to see unicorns are real.
Thank you, Yosy, for giving me the title already for today's day. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Unicorns and tents. How do you know this chiddush that the pishtan, the oil of pishtan does become tamei? Omer Balter said, "Gomer oil mimishkan." We learn oil when it talks about tumah, and we learn about oil where the Mishkan talks about oil, and we learn one from the next. And let's see how the Gemara elaborates. Mimishkan. Ksiv hacha. It says over here in Parshas Chukas, in the parsha of Tumah v'Tahira and Tumas oil, it says Zois hatayra Adam kiyamas ba'oil. So that's teaching us about Tumas oil. Uksiv hasam. It says in the parsha of the Melechus Mishkan at the end of Shmois that we just learned. It says vayivresh oil al Mishkan. They spread out the oil on top of the Mishkan. Now, what was this oil made out of? So we know from learning parshas the last couple of weeks that the lowest level was tchelis v'argamim v'salah shani. It was made out of wool and linen. It was that was the first layer. It was 10 uriyos, 5 and 5 that were connected with those gold hooks. On top of that, there was a layer of uriyos izim, which was made out of the hair that they pulled out of goats, and those were 11 panels, 6 and 5. And then on top of that, they put oiris tchashim and oiris elim adomim, sat on top of the whole thing. So we say mala halon shel pishtan, kari oil, just like over there, the only products of a tree, pishtan, were called an oil. The Torah refers to that as an oil. Afkan, so too, when the pasuk talks about tumas oil, in chukas shel pishtan kari oil. Pishtan is called oil, and that's why it'll have tumas oil. Fact to Gemara, if your criteria as to what can consist of tumas oil comes from the Mishkan, well, then you have to analyze the requirements of what it took to be an oil in the Mishkan in a little bit of greater detail. And all of the individual threads have to be spun, and then the chut and kafel. Then you took 6 threads of each species and spun it together. So each thread was really 6 threads. Maybe in order to be an oil out of pishtan, afkan shazuran the chut and kafel. Maybe only with the special processing of making this fabric, only there would it qualify as an oil. Talmud Lomer oil. In the parsha of Chukas, it says oil multiple times to be inclusive of more than just that limited type of thread. For the Gemara, once oil opens it up, oil riba, then I feel kol milinami. So if that's the case, so then everything should be considered an oil. Why are you just using the oil riba to ignore the shazurin and the chut and kafel? Ignore everything and say any covering is an oil. So Gemara, you can't do that because we have Gzera Shava. So again, we have Gzera Shava that wants to limit the scope of what's an oil. We have the oil to expand the scope. So as a compromise, we say it refers to the fabric, the type of fabric noted in the Mishkan, but not exactly the same preparation and detail. Gemara, why don't you say the Krushim are also part of the Mishkan? So say that wood, the crushing was made out of wood. So say a wood oil would also have those same characteristics that they're metama. So Gemara Amar Kra, if you look at the pasuk and you were medayik in it, it says Vasisa Krushim La Mishkan. You should make wooden boards for the Mishkan. So clearly the wooden boards are not the Mishkan. Mishkan Kari Mishkan, then Krushim Kari Mishkan. So we don't identify the word Krushim with the Mishkan. It was just a component of the Mishkan, and therefore, since the Torah does not refer to it as Mishkan, we don't see that wood could form an oil that will become tamei. In fact, the Gemara, once you analyze and you're medayik that way, well, let's take it a step further. It says you should make a cover for the Mishkan. So would you deduce from there that the cover is not an oil? Hachanami michsa lo yikri oil. Would you not deduce from there that the cover now is not considered an oil because it says michsa lo oil, just like it says krushim la Mishkan? And if you want to say in fact that there is no tumas oil on any part of the covering because it's not oil, it's just a michsa lo oil, well, we have a problem because Elahada boy Reb Elazar had an interesting shayla. Or behemoth tmeya ma'u sheyitama ba'oil ameis. He had a question: would the or of behemoth tmeya become tamei if it was oil ameis? He doesn't have the question by behemoth Torah. There he makes an assumption that for sure it's tamei as oil ameis. So hashta or behemoth Torah loy metama. If you're going to learn michsa la'oil tells you that the covering is not an oil, that means you're also saying that any oil of an animal would not be
of a tamei, of a
even
not
a
kosher animal.
Even a yes kosher, because we're assuming that the skins that they used for the roof of the Mishkan were made from kosher animals. So if even from kosher animals, it would not be metama because it's not called an oil. So or behemoth tamei mi boy. Why would Reb Elazar even clear by ar behemoth tameya, even ar behemoth Torah, which were the skins that covered the Mishkan, even those you see from the pasuk are not considered an oil; they're merely a michsel oil. Zakt Gemara shiny hasam by the covering of the Mishkan, it's different. You're right. It does say michsel oil, which you would be medayik and say that they're not considered part of the oil. But the hadra kra, the pasuk later on does put them in the same category as a real oil, because the pasuk says v'nosu es yiriyos hamishkan ves oil moyed. So that's talking about the different coverings, the lower covering of tchilas hargamon, and then the one of the izim, and then it says michseu u'michsei tachash asher olav. So the pasuk wraps all of these coverings into one sentence, and we learn from there that nakish elyon latachton, where we compare the upper coatings that were made out of Irish Elim Adomim and the Irish Techashim, we compare those to the Tachton, to the Yuris Izim and the Yuris of Tcheles Vargamon. Ma Tachton Kara oil, just like we know that the lower coverings are referred to as oil and they would be metama, Af Elyon, so too the upper covering, Kara oil, is also called an oil. Now, just to make it clear, the lower coverings actually wrapped around the side of the Mishkan, and they were longer than the Mishkan. The Irish Elim Adam and Irish Chashim, I think if you look at the pictures, were only a layer that sat on top. So they weren't really the roof. They were sort of an adornment to make the roof look nice with these colorful animal skins. So there's a shaila that we just
look nice to who? Nobody could see that.
To a drone.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so happy that you brought that up to who, because Reb Moshe Weinberg was kind enough to follow up on the shaila that we had a couple of days ago about how could the menorah be an edus l'boya olam that the Shekhinah is sharing Klal Yisrael, who sees it burning in the Heichal, right? That was the kasha that I think David Jolty asked that question.
Yes, I did.
So Moshe Weinberg asked Avram Weisbrod, and I'm not sure if you could read my phone here, but he brings down over here, the menorah was outside the parachas in the Heichal. So this is a quote from the Pnei Yeshua. And the Pnei Yeshua says, in fact, that the door of the Mishkan was open all day, so that, or of the Hershel, the Mishkan was open all day, so that anybody can see it.
Good.
Now, I still don't understand that so clearly, because the Mizbeach, didn't the Mizbeach obstruct the view of the opening of the Hershel?
I think it was a partial obstruction.
But clearly, they were able, the Hamoin Am, out and about, were able to see that the menorah was lit, and then there, my Ravi, they were able to use it.
Right. Anyway, I have a teretz for who sees the roof of the Mishkan. If the Mishkan's in a valley and you're on a hill, you can easily see the Mishkan.
Was Shiloh a valley? Or
no, even in the midbar.
In the midbar, they none of them flattened everything out.
Yeah, but the stuff on the sides that weren't flattened out were needed to flatten.
More from a distance.
But when they traveled, they took it off. That's when people saw it, right? Before it was folded, everybody came to gawk. Wow, look how beautiful it looks,
yeah, but
right?
Before it was disassembled, the crushing were 10 amas high. Nobody could see up on top. Right?
Yeah, nobody could see that high.
No, I know, but when they took the covers off to travel, how did they travel?
You only admire your wife's clothing when she takes them in the closet?
Well, I'm not going to comment if the clothes look better on or off. Isn't this a beautiful dress? Yes, not for you. Right? But I think that the
overhang on the sides. Did overhang on the sides maybe?
Not the Tchashim, the Irish Elam Adam. They just sat on the top.
No, but yeah. Anyway, Shiloh. I don't know if Shiloh was in a valley, but if there are any hills anywhere around there, you can look down on it.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Wasn't it though? I always wonder, wasn't it a smoke hazard if they had the covers on? Where was the mizbeach? In an open area, or was underneath?
Well, the Mizbeach HaKtoros was in the Hershel.
Yeah, it was
right
underneath.
It was right underneath the covers. Where did the smoke go?
It was more like vaping.
No, the whole idea was that we speak about this on the Yom Noraim, that the whole room is supposed to become filled with smoke of the Ketairis. It's actually,
in fact, it wasn't ventilated. It actually smoked up the whole room.
No, that's the way we say this in our tefillah on Yom Kippur, that the kohen is makar the ketairis and he puts it onto the fire until the entire the text of what we say is that until the entire room is filled with
yeah. Right. But that was on the Beis Hamikdash. It was open, right, and it's still filled with smoke. But in the Mishkan, it must have been tenfold.
Well, the base Kachim was a pretty sealed up room.
Yeah, it was closed.
Right. It was closed, right?
And it got full of smoke. So
I don't really follow. What is the problem? I probably missed something. What's the problem with not being able to see the coverings of the Mishkan from up on top? What's the problem with that?
Absolutely nothing. It was a side point.
Oh. Yeah, it was just he made a point. Yosy made a point. It was just a decorative. It was just decorative. That very top part of the Mishkan, the covering, the top covering of 3 or 4.
The Irish Elam Adam, the Irish Chashim was more decorative than functional.
Right. So who sees it? That's the question.
I know there's a shul.
Wasn't Moshe extra tall?
So he saw it? Only him?
So he saw it.
I know that in a shul.
Maybe the others also that tall.
I know there's a shul in Eretz Yisrael that has a stunning bima. However, the bima is always covered. And the fellow who donated the bima likes it that way, that nobody's really able to see what a beautiful bima he made. However, once a year, people do come to gawk when they change the coverings from blue to white by Yom Noraim to see the beautiful bima now that it's uncovered. They actually come while the Gabbai does that, but otherwise it's always covered.
Can you put that picture in your background?
CHAIM ZVI.
It's always covered.
CHAIM ZVI, next time somebody asks you what you're doing up on the roof, you can tell them, what do you need? What do you care? You can't see it.
Okay, sagt der Heilige Gemara weiter. Gufa. Boy Reb Elazar. Reb Elazar had a shaila, and this is the shaila that we just discussed. Or behemoth tmeya mal sheyitma tumas ahel. Would the or of a behemoth tmeya be metama tumas ahel? What is exactly is a shaila? And Rashi adds to it is that we learn from the Mishkan, and the Mishkan is only Torah, only Behemoth Torah. So why would you say that it would also include the Or of Behemoth Torah? Amar Vada Bar Ava, Tachash Shahaya B'mei Moshe Kamibayla. His question is actually about specifically what the Mishkan was made out of. So the Oris Tchoshim that was put on the roof, what was that Tachash? What type of animal was that? Was it Tamei Haya or Tar Haya? That's really what Reb Elazar's question is did they use the Or of a Tachash, which was a behema, was it tar or was it tamei? If it was tar, so then I have no reason to believe that a behemoth tamei, the or of a behemoth tamei, would be an oil mace. But if, in fact, on the Mishkan they used something that was tamei, and the Torah refers to that as an oil, then any skin of any tamei animal should be an oil. So the Rabbi Elvin spoke out for the Satmar Rebbe. Why would you even assume that an animal used in the Mishkan was tamei? Wouldn't it be natural to assume that they would only use animals that are tar in the Beis HaMikdash? So the Satmar Rebbe answers in a very Satmar fashion that I'm sure many people might object to, but he says, we know the Or Tachash was very colorful, it was beautiful. You're going to see the Gemara is going to talk about it in a minute. So look to Satmar Rebbe, something, and also the Tachash was known to flaunt its colors, such as a peacock. So the Satmar Rebbe says any person who's very colorful and likes to flaunt too much, that boy decided this is a behemoth Torah or a behemoth Maya. Talk to Gemara. So Tachash Hoybe b'Moshe k'maboyle. Tami Haya Itar Haya. Amar Rabbi Yosef Ma'ite boyle. I don't understand. What's your question? Tanina, we learned a brisa. Lehuchshiru l'malachas shamayim ela or behemoth Torah b'lvad. We learned a Mefurish brisa that it could only be tar. So if it could only be tar, then your question is answered. And the or of behemoth tameya is definitely not an oil because the tchoshim must have been tar. Masav Reb Abba, effective Abba Kasha. Reb Yehuda said, Shnei mechso yisoyu. So it says in the pasuk that on top of the Urias Izim, they put Oyres Elim Adamim Vayres Tchoshim. If you look at the Mishkan books, there's actually two shitas. Was it a layer of Oyres Elim Adamim, and then on top of that Oyres Tchoshim, or was it one layer that was made up of a blend of Oyres Tchoshim and Oyres Elim Adamim? So that's the shaila, and that shaila there in the Mishkan book actually comes from our Gemara right over here. So the Gemara says as follows. It was actually two separate layers. Achad shel oyres elim adamim, ve'echad shel oyres tchoshim. Reb Nechemia Omer michsa echad haya. It was one layer, but it was put together. V'doima, and it looked like the tchoshim, the colorful skin of the tchoshim, v'doima kimin tala ilam. It looked like a known animal in those days. That's a chaya tameya, Rashi says, and it has nice colors. And this tachash looked like this tala ilan. Frank the Gemara about tala ilan tamehu, a tala ilan is tameh. So the Gemara is trying to suggest, so a tachash must also be tameh. So you might ask, it doesn't make any sense. We're saying that the color of the tachash looked like the tala ilan. Why would you automatically assume that now the tachash is tameh? We're just saying its colors were similar to that of a tala ilan. So I think he speaks out, if he did from the Chasam Sofer or from the Sfas Emes, he speaks out that the Gemara or the Brisa would never compare a behemoth Torah to a behemoth Tameya. Wouldn't do it. So that alone might indicate that maybe a Tachash is a behemoth Tameya. Zakimar Hakakamar, you don't have a right. Kimin Tala Ilanhu, it's similar to a Tala Ilan, Sheyesh Boy Gavad and Harbe, Veloy Tala Ilan, but it's not really a behemoth Tameya. We're just using it as an example. The Lahasam Tameh, a Tala Ilan is an animal, a Chayah that's Tameh. Tar, and the tachash, in fact, is tar. And Amar Rabbi Yosef, Ihachi, I can actually support your comment that the tachash is an animal that's tar, because Hanidu Matamar Gaminon Saskuna. Saskuna means Shesos Begavonim Harbe. It's proud, it flaunts its many colors. So again, the Chasam Sofer says here that what's the raya from the Targum? Because the Targum could have easily said Tala Ilan, because that would be the best way to describe it to his readers what it was. We would understand. Yet the Targum rejected to use the word Tal'ilam, and the Targum used the word Saskuna, which means very colorful. So if anything, that shows that it's not a behemoth tameya, because the fact that the Targum rejected the most obvious translation that it could have used and used something that was not typical, not as clear, clearly the Targum is trying to show that this is a behemoth tahira. Rav Amar, or behemoth tameya, the metame ba'oil hameis mehach. I could bring you a different raya. So we're left without a raya on Rabbi Elazar's shaila. So Rabbi wants to attempt to bring another shaila that a or behemoth tameya would be metame ba'oil. The Tanya, or oy ba'or. So this pasuk is a pasuk that's talking about our good old friends from yesterday, the tumah of tzuras. So it says oy v'shashi oy v'erev, la pishtim v'la oy ba'or, and then it says oy b'chol melechas or. So it says or and it says be'or. And from there we learn, or oy ba'or, riba, it comes to tell us that it also includes or behemoth tameya. So we're learning that a or of a behemoth tameya is in the halacha of tzuras. So if you have the skin of a non-kosher animal and it gets a nega, it has the halachas of tzuras. That's one thing it comes to be marva. The second thing it comes to be marva is the shalaka b'yad koyin. Normally, if your beggar
your football could get a tzuras. That's what you're saying.
Indeed, your football can have tzuras. That's right.
The pigskin.
That's right. So the halacha is normally the way it worked. The chronology of it was if your beggar had tzuras, you would take your beggar to a kohen. Kohen would look at it, examine it, and decide if it's tzuras or not. Well, what if when you brought your football to the kohen's looking at the football, as he's spinning it, new tzuras pops up on it. That doesn't follow the strict guidelines of how the Torah describes how tzuras develops. So from or ba'or, we also learn that if it's shalaka b'yad kohen, even if the tzuras wasn't there before the kohen started to look at it, rather the tzuras popped up while he was looking at it, that's also tameh el tzuras. And the third thing we learn from it is katatz mikulam v'asa achas mehen. If you took little bits and pieces of different fabrics, such as or and pishtim and summer, and you made one fabric out of a whole bunch of patches of different types of materials, minayin, how do you know that also could be mekabel tumah tzuras? Talmud Lomer, oy bkol melechasar. So the problem is, so we want to learn if it's metaman tumah tzuras, it should also be metaman tumah oil. But the bkol mefrich, you can ask akasha, you can't bring a raya just because or of a behemoth tameya is subject to tumas tzuras, it should also be subject to tumas oil, because there's a chumrah by nagoyim. Mal nagoyim shegen shesi ve'erev tamei behen. Nagoyim have a big chumrah that even threads become tamei. Tumas oil definitely doesn't have that chumrah. So just because or behemoth tameya is susceptible to tumas nega tzuras, we don't necessarily know that it would be susceptible to tumas oil. Alagomer shrotzim. Let's try to learn from shrotzim. The Tanya or, it says or by shrotzim. Ainli ella or behemoth tahira. I would only know that a beged made out of a behemoth tahira, only that can get tumah from a sheretz. But or behemoth tameya minayin. How do you know that even the hide of a behemoth tameya is susceptible to tumah shrotzim? Talmud Lomer oy or. So once we know that by tumah shrotzim, the skin, the hide of a behemoth tameya will be susceptible to tumah, we'll say hu adin for tumah soil. We said that shrotzim, tumah shrotzim, has a very big chumrah that even a tiny little piece of sheretz will create tumah. By an oil, you need a much bigger piece. You need a kazayis minames to create tumah. So you wouldn't have a raya from shrotzim to oil base. So which also requires a bigger shear, it needs a shear gris. The chazer adin loy roizeh karoizeh. There's chumras that shrotzim have that nega tzuras has. Loy roizeh karoizeh, and there's chumras that nega tzuras has that shrotzim don't have. But at tzad hashabash behen, what they have in common is sha'or tamei behen, that skin hide can become tamei, and va'asa ar behemoth tameya ka ar behemoth Torah. And in both those halachas, by tumas tzuras and by tumas sheretz, there's no distinction between the hide of a behemoth tmeya and the behemoth Torah. So af ani avi oil hameis, so too if my hide of a behemoth tmeya is made out of the hide of a behemoth tmeya, but she'ar tamei boy, v'nasa boy, or behemoth tmeya or behemoth Torah. We should learn that that the hide could be tamei, and whether it's hide of a behemoth tmeya or Torah, it shouldn't make a difference. So this will be a proof to answer the shaila that Reb Elazar had. Amalei Rava mibarnish l'Ravashi. It's not a good raya. Even from the tzara shava, you won't be able to teach to oil that or of a behemoth tmeya is metama oil, because ikalamifrich mala tzara shava shabehen. Both these things, tzaras as well as shiratzim, shekin tmein b'pachs mikazayis. Their shear of tumah, whether it's an adasha or a gris, it's much less than the shear kazayis that the tumas oil requires. So just because the scope of tumas nega tzaras and the scope of tumas sheretz applies to or and the or of a behemoth tmeya, you could definitely not export that to oil of a mace, because there the shiurim are much bigger. Where would I possibly be able to learn up this shaila from? Also, if we want to discuss or behemoth tmeya being tummy oil, there's another makar you can find for it. You could learn it out of the hairs of izim that we pluck and we make that into a baguette, and that noite shalizim we know is what one of the urias were made out of on the Mishkan. So she'enim matam b'negoyim, noite shalizim is not subject to tumas negoyim. Yet it's matame ba'oil ameis. It's matame ba'oil ameis because it's actually one of the coverings of the Mishkan. So or behemoth tmeya, she'matame b'negoyim, the hide of behemoth tmeya, which we know is matame b'negoyim because we just looked at Amar Aleph. Eino din she'matame ba'oil ameis. So it's a pasuk to call the chleimer. Ma'adich yurias izim are matame ba'oil, even though they're not matame with tzaras. So something that is tamei b'tzaras, such as or behemoth tmeya, should surely be tamei ba'oil ameis. So that's poshit now, Reb Elazar shaila, and Reb Elazar shaila is the or behemoth tmeya matame ba'oil, and the answer is a yes, because you learn it from makal v'chleimer from noita shel izim. So now that if we go back and we retrace our steps, it's possible now that the tchoshim were a behemoth tmeya, because we're saying that even the or of a behemoth tmeya is an oil. So that l'hadatani of Yosef lehuchshru b'melecha shemayim el or behemoth tahar b'lvad. What is it referring to? It's definitely not referring to oil hameis, because we just said now that oil hameis could be tamei even though it's or of a behemoth tmeya. So what did Rabbi Yosef mean when he said lehuchshru b'melecha shemayim el or behemoth tahar b'lvad? Now, you might want to say, why don't you just take what he said at face value? He was talking about the oiris, and all of those oiris, he says, were kosher, and maybe he's just making a comment that choshim are kosher. But how do you know it has to impact some other halacha? So the Rishonim tell us very simply, Rabbi Yosef wouldn't teach us a brisa l'doros about something that occurred in the Mishkan that's not relevant anymore. It's not halacha l'maisa. That's one horror. The other horror is, even if he was just telling us a fun fact about something that's not relevant anymore that occurred in the Mishkan, he should have just said the tchoshim were tahar. He said something more general. He said lo huchshu b'malecha shemayim ela or behemoth tahar b'lvad. Clearly, Rabbi Yosef must be referring to some other halacha that he's trying to tell us only applies to a behemoth tahar. It's not oil, because we just said a second ago that even oil of or behemoth tmeya is tamei. So what was Rabbi Yosef talking about when he said something only applies to behemoth tahar? So tomorrow the tefillin. Maybe to tell us that the parashis of the tefillin that you write, the klaf has to be or behemoth tahar. So tomorrow tefillin v'hedek sivru. We don't need Rabbi Yosef to tell us some chiddush, because it's a mefurish pasuk by tefillin. It says l'mantia teres Hashem b'ficha. So if we look up the pasuk, it says v'hayelecha lo'isal yadcha u'lezikarin bedinecha, which is talking about our tefillin. L'mantia teres Hashem b'ficha, and we learned midam mutar b'ficha. You're only allowed to use products for tefillin, things that you could put into your mouth. So we know for sure that tefillin have to be from a behemoth tahar. So tomorrow elul ayron, maybe it's referring to the bottom. From Teres Hashem b'ficha, we're only talking about things that you're writing Teres Hashem on. So the parashiyos would have to be written on the or of a behemoth tahar. But the bottom, no one's writing anything. No one's writing any Torah on the bottom. Maybe the bottom don't have to be from a behemoth Torah, and maybe that's the chiddush that Rabbi Yosef meant to bring to the table. That even the bottom have to be made from the hide of the behemoth Torah. In fact, Gemara, what are you talking about? The bottom also have Hashem's name written on them, because Amar Abaye Shin Shel Tefillin Halacha L'Moshe Messinai. The shin on the tefillin is Halacha L'Moshe Messinai, and then there's the Daled, and then there's the Yud. So you have the shin over here, and you have the shin over here, and then you have the knot, depending on what type of knot you have, the Daled and the Yud. So it spells the name Shakai. So tefillin also should have to are also under that Halacha L'Moshe Messinai. And if that's the case, it's also covered under the Torah Hashem Beficha. So again, why do I need Rabbi Yosef to tell you that tefillin has to be from a behemoth Torah? Maybe it's a tefillin shel yad. If you check out your tefillin shel yad over here, there is nothing. There's no imprint on it at all. So it doesn't. There's no shin. There's nothing there. So maybe the tefillin shel yad, I wouldn't know, has to be from a behemoth Torah, and maybe that's what Rabbi Yosef was trying to tell us a chiddush. So he brings down from the Sfas Emes that the tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, they're a unit. They ride together, and therefore once the Gemara brings a raya from muter beficha that the tefillin shel rosh has to be with hide of a behemoth Torah, we automatically know the tefillin shel yad is the same way.
What kind of
Yosy Simon, didn't you? Yosy Simon, didn't you? Sorry.
No, your turn.
Yosy Simon, didn't you show us the Daled of the Tefillin Shel Rosh on the Retzuos?
I showed you my knot.
Right. So what about the Retzuos of the Tefillin Shel Yad? It's also the Yud is on the Tefillin Shel Yad.
But the Retzuos are not part of this equation. I showed you my Retzuos because to show you that Shin was part of the name Shakai, but actually on the tefillin itself, it's only the Shin. So the Retzuos don't count towards saying what the bottom have to be made out of. The Retzuos are a separate unit that we're about to discuss.
Why can't we use? Why can't we use mezuzah as an answer?
What to teach you that mezuzah? Why don't you say that Rabbi Yosef is referring to mezuzah?
Yeah,
that's a very good question. But I don't know the psukim of mezuzah. But maybe by mezuzah you also have the svara of Torah Hashem Beficha. I don't know. That's a very good question.
But why wouldn't the Gemara bring it down? I mean, they went through the pilpul of the tefillin. So
that's an excellent question. I didn't even think of that. I don't know. It's an excellent question. Dovid's asking the Balter, why didn't the Gemara ask for mezuzah? Unless the Gemara knew from somewhere, and we should look to see if the Art Scroll mentions it. Unless the Gemara knew from somewhere that mezuzah for sure has to be from a kosher animal. But that's it. The question is a good question. Much better than the answer. I don't have an answer. Why didn't the Gemara ask for mezuzah? So, I'll have to poke around, see what I can come up with. So Zok the Gemara, maybe
sometimes,
Ella, I'm sorry?
Sometimes the Talmud is happy when the Rebbe doesn't know as well.
So then you should be happy every single day, every single time.
Isn't that for me fall into the Torah? The Torah has to be written on a certain cloth that we know from there, like some connection from there.
Could be, but I'd love to clarify that.
Yeah.
I'd love to clarify that. So tomorrow, El Karchan B'Sayron El Toifram Begidon. Maybe what Rabbi Yosef's chiddush is in the Brisa is that not only do the parshas have to be written on a kosher animal because it's a Torah Hashem Beficha, and not only do the bottom have to be from the hide of a kosher animal because of the shin, so that also falls under the Torah Hashem Beficha. Maybe the chiddush of Rabbi Yosef is referring to the sinews that you use to bind the parshas to each other, or that you tie up the tefillin with. Maybe that's what it's referring to, and that's why Rabbi Yosef needed this chiddush. So the Gemara, no, Hanami. Halacha l'Moshe Messinayu. That's also a halacha l'Moshe Messinayu. Titania, we learned in the Brisa, tefillin mirabois, the fact that the tefillin have to be perfectly square is halacha l'Moshe Messinayu, and nichachos b'sayron v'nitravois begidon are also part of that same halacha l'Moshe Messinayu. So now the Gemara suggests maybe Rabbi Yosef is talking about what CHAIM ZVI mentioned, Elul Retzuos. Maybe Rabbi Yosef's chiddush that it has to be from Behemoth Torah is talking about the refuahs of the tefillin, which maybe, thank you, is not covered by halacha l'Moshe Sinai. In fact, the Gemara of Amar Rabbi Yitzchak refuah shechoros halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Rabbi Yitzchak said that there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai telling us that the refuahs have to be black. So the Gemara is suggesting once there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai about the refuahs that they have to be black, just like the rest of the tefillin, so maybe the halacha l'Moshe Sinai also means that it has to have all the halachas that we discussed applied to the tefillin, such as they have to be from Behemoth Torah, from Behemoth Torah. So the Gemara, no. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai is very precise. Nehi de gemiri shechurais taharis migemiri. If there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, it's not loosey-goosey, wishy-washy. It's precise. So if the halacha l'Moshe Sinai said that the refuahs have to be black, that's it. That's all you take from it. You can't add using your reasoning to the halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So the Gemara at this point believes that the Chiddush of Rabbi Yosef, that like Hochshu b'Melecha Shemayim Ela Or Be'emet Torah, is referring to refuahs, which we would not have known from halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and Rabbi Yosef wants to learn from there that refuahs have to be from a Behemoth Torah. At the end of the day, we still didn't come to our resolution as to whether or not the animal of the Tachash was a tar animal or not. We don't have the answer. So the Gemara says, "My habi Allah the Tachash, shahaya b'mei Moshe." Whatever happened with the Tachash of Moshe's times, was it a Behemoth Torah or not? Amar b'loy, Amar b'Shimon ben Lakish. Omer Hayer Reb Meir. Reb Meir used to say, Tachash shahaya b'mei Moshe was a berry b'fnei atzma. It was a one-time unicorn. What happened to Akiva? Oh, a unicorn. Hi, Akiva. It's a unicorn. Here, we're up to the unicorns.
By the way, Yosy, in recruiting, we have a term unicorn. It's like a needle in a haystack. It's a person that you're trying to find that doesn't exist because there's so many requirements and skills sets. So it's called the unicorn. So
Akiva, you're a unicorn.
Yeah.
Toby, did you just call him a unicorn? Zok the Gemara.
Okay, so there's no. You're using it obviously as a euphemism of that it's a unicorn, right? It didn't have a horn. We don't have really description of what the Tachash.
No, we're going to see it had a horn.
Oh, it did have a horn.
That's
okay.
literally that.
All right.
Even though it was a one-time thing, a one-time creature, was it kosher or was it not kosher? Did it have kosher simonim or not?
These are all the shilas that the Gemara is going to discuss right now. So, Dr. Gemara, the Chacham were never able to figure out if it was a chaya or if it was a behema. Now, the Karen Achas Hoyshaloi, it had one unicorn, the Metzrai on its forehead. It only showed up at that period of time for Moshe so that he'd be able to use it for its hide. Mishkan, and then Venignas. He used it for its hide, and then it went and hid. And we never saw it since. Anybody on my corny joke, hide? The animal went to hide after we used it? Okay, forget it. I'll take a mercy laugh. It's okay. Now, from the fact that the Brisa tells us that this animal had one horn, it must have been a behemoth tahir. How do you see that? Rabbi Yehuda said, Shor shehikriv Adam Arishon, the shor that Adam Arishon was makriv. And we learned in brachas, the reason why he was makriv was actually a shayla. Either on Friday, which is the first day that he was created, after Eitam Leitzadas, Hashem told him he was going to die. He didn't know when, he didn't know what, and then suddenly it started to get dark. And he freaked out, because he figures, that's it. It's getting dark, the world's coming to an end, I'm going to die, and everything's over. And him and Chava were crying. And then the next morning, it got light again. He says, hey, the world's not over. And he was so happy that he brought a korban. That's one shot. The other shot is he brought the korban just as a kapara for his avera for eating from the Eitzadas. So Karen Achas Hoyshaloi b'Metzchosh, Nemar, it says, Vestitav Hashem, it should be good to Hashem. Mishar par, like an ox, Makrin Nafis, both it has horns and it has split hoofs. So that's how we know it was kosher. Now we learned after Chulin that any animal that has horns, you can assume has split hoofs. So horns is one of the, even though it's not one of the official simonim, but the Gemara tells us that horns is one of the simonim of something that's tahar.
I guess they never saw rhinoceros, huh?
I'm not sure. I guess the horn of a rhinoceros looks a little different, but yes, you have a good point.
The horn.
I'm not sure. That's a good point. It does have a big tusk. Or an elephant. So it could be a tusk and a
Elephant.
horn.
That's right.
It doesn't grow out of his metzach. It doesn't grow out of his head. Makrin sounds like two horns. So where did you get this from? That it only had one horn. It says makrin, but it doesn't. It's pronounced as if it has a yud, but it's spelled as if it doesn't have a yud, which would read mikeren. So in fact, Adam Rishon used an animal with one horn, and Moshe would use a tachash with one horn. The elephant speaks out. Let me see if I remember who he speaks it out from. No, I don't see who he did. He spoke out that what happens, they needed this unicorn to make the Mishkan. Why was it so important? So he answers that one of the reasons why we built the base of Mikdash and why we built the Mishkan is to be mechaper on the Chet Egel or Klaishol L'Rabbi Dezorah. So we use something with one horn, which calls out that there's only one Ribbon Shlei. Because talking more about the Velivshit Minei Demin Behemahu. At least bring a raya from here that it was a behemoth, because we're comparing it. We're trying to say that it must be a reoccurrence of that same animal that Adam Rishon dealt with. And that was a behemoth, because we know you can't even bring chayis as a carbon. Only a behemoth can be brought as a carbon. That's not true. Since we know there's some type of deer that we know for sure is a chaya, and we know the lesle elachad the karen, and we know it only has one horn, it's possible to say that the tachash is different from the animal that Adam Rishon brought, and it's possible that it's a chaya, and that's why the Chachamim were never machriya if the tachash was a chaya or a behemoth. Okay, now we're getting more into practical stuff. Now in the olden days, they didn't throw anything out. So where did they get their wicks from? They would take an old piece of beget, like for instance, a piece of fabric that's 3 by 3, 3 exploits by 3 exploits, which we just learned is big enough to be makabel tumah, and they would fold it and twist it into a thick wick, and that's how they made their wicks. So psilas habeget shekip, you took a 3 by 3, which is a beget that could have been tummy, and you twisted it into a wick. Now the way they would prepare their wicks is after they would twist it into the wick, into a shape of a wick, they would then singe it, just like we sometimes do. We pre-light our wife's nearest because it lights better once it was lit before. So they would singe those wicks. So what happens if you had a work in progress? You did twist the small piece of fabric into a wick, but you didn't singe it. Rabbi Lezer says it still retains its status of a beget, and therefore it's still makabel tamei, and you're not allowed to use it as a wick, and we're soon going to see why. Why can't you use it as a wick? Rabbi Akiva, it no longer has a status of a beget, and once you twist it into a wick, even though you didn't singe it, I say it changes its status, and it loses its status of a beget, so it's now tahar. And I do allow you to light with it. The shaila in Tumah, like we touched in the Mishnah, it's quite simple what the machlokes is. Rabbi Lezer over kibul einay moil. Rabbi Lezer says merely twisting it into a wick does not change its status, and therefore over milsa kamaisa kaima, it retains its status of a fabric, which is makabel tumah. Rabbi Akiva's over kibul moil, folding it or twisting it into a wick does change its status, so it will be tulivotel, and therefore it's no longer a beget, and therefore it's no longer makabel tumah. But my pligi, why in the world should there be a machlokes if you're allowed to use that as a wick? We're speaking about a piece of fabric that was exactly 3 by 3, and the moment you light it, it's going to become diminished. So what's the problem with that? We're talking about not a regular Friday afternoon. If it was a regular Friday afternoon, you could light it, no problem. There's no problem with lighting up a wick on Friday. But here, it was like we're going to experience next week, where we have to make an Erev Tefshilin, where Erev Shabbos is on the Yom Tov day. So Friday is Yom Tov. So you're lighting now this beged on Yom Tov. And the Chula Alma is L'Hudu Rabbi Yehuda. Everybody holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Doma Masikin b'kelim, Ve Masikin b'shiver kelim. You're allowed to light neiris with kelim that are not muksa. But if you had a keli that on Yom Tov became a shiver keli, So this is muksa, because this wick was not in existence before Yom Tov. It only became a wick on Yom Tov, which is called a noilad, and that's muksa. So Reb Yehuda holds masikim b'kelim and masikim b'shiver kelim. You're not allowed to light with something that has newly become a shiver kli, and we have a problem of muksa here. Uduchula alma islu de ula, and everybody also holds of ula. So we have to create a whole binyan to understand the machlekes of Reb Akiva. What does ula say? Ula hamadlik tzarich shiyadik b'reif hayotzei. So what am I doing over here? I have my wick. The wick is a beged at this point, according to Reb Eliezer. It's 3 by 3. Now I have to hold my wick there until most of the wick that's above, out of the oil, has to be on fire. That's how long I have to hold my fire there. Well, by the time that happens, my beged has been reduced from being a 3 by 3 to less than a 3 by 3. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm making a noilad. Before I put my fire there, this was not a wick, it was a candle. It was a beged. After I light it up and it becomes diminished, and now it's less than 3 by 3, it becomes a shiver kli. So now I'm touching muksa, because as I'm holding my candle there and that thing gets diminished and becomes less than 3 by 3, boom, it's a noilad, it's muksa, and I'm touching muksa.
Sorry, Yosy, isn't noilad if something's created? So by burning it, you're diminished, it's going away.
So you're creating a wick.
By taking something away, even
That's
though...
right, you're changing its status from beged to wick, and that's called noilad.
Okay.
So Zok Gemara, Madam Chor Shiyadik B'Rei B'Yotzei, Rabbi Eliezer Sofer Kipol Einay Moil. The mere fact that I folded it into a wick never made it into a wick. It was still a beged. So when does it change from a beged into a wick? As I'm lighting it, as it starts to burn, that's when it changes its status from a beged to a wick. Havali shever kli, and v'chi kamatlik v'shever kli kamatlik. And now I'm lighting a shever kli. Rabbi Akiva Sofer Kipol Moil. No, even before Yom Tov, I've already twisted the wick. So the wick is already prepared from before Yom Tov. And therefore, it already lost its status of a beged before Yom Tov. If I'm lighting with it, it's just like a piece of wood or any other wick that a vadam allowed to light with. The problem we have here is, as far as I know, muksa, you're allowed to touch muksa. Muksa, you're just not allowed to move. Did everybody agree to me that muksa, you're allowed to touch muksa. You're not allowed to move muksa.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Here, I'm merely touching it. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi says something very interesting. If we look
You
at
can
Rashi,
touch a wick without moving it. I mean,
well, Rashi says touching it alone is also. Rashi the chula amo islahu tzarech hamadlik lahadik piyadayim kodim silik yadav. Before he pulls his hands away, he has to make sure that roif hayotzim and apsila chutz laner. Let's say the wick sticks up 1 inch from the surface of the oil. A half an inch has to be ignited before he can pull his hand away.
I remember seeing.
I'm sorry?
I remember seeing halacha that items that are prone to move, for instance, like a pencil or an egg, that are prone to move, if you touch them, then you're not allowed to touch them.
So a wick might be like that.
I think so.
Right. Okay, but let's see what it says over here. You have to handle in it, which is what you're both saying. After this beged is reduced, and now it's not 3 fingers by 3 fingers anymore. We look at this wick like it was a keli that broke on Yom Tov. Now, when you light it a little bit, since it's exactly 3 fingers by 3 fingers, have a shever kli, the pachas mishalosh lav kliu. Once it's diminished from 3 fingers, it's no longer a beged. Now, when he's lighting it, he's lighting a shever kli. That we said earlier that if it's a keli you could light, dafka shaloi yiga boy acher shenifchas. Dafka shaloi yiga boy. So Rashi is saying that there's a problem of touching the muksa. So the way CHAIM ZVI and Dovi explained it, I understand. Sometimes touching is a problem because it's very susceptible to moving. But the Stipler said a huge chiddush. And he said every type of muksa, the isser is to move it. But the muksa of noilad is a much more serious type of muksa. Because It's something that was not even in existence before Yom Tov. And now it's in existence. And the pasuk says, "Vehechinu asher yaviu," you're only allowed to deal with things on Shabbos and Yom Tov that were prepared before. And the extra chomer of noilad makes it that you're not even allowed to touch it, which is a huge chiddush l'halacha, that a muksa, noilad, not only are you not allowed to move, you're also not allowed to touch it.
Yossi?
But, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So L'kuli Alma, the beged has to be three by 3 in order to be
The smallest size fabric that's called a beged to be makabel tuma is 3 by 3.
So if it was less than 3 by 3,
To begin with,
no
problem.
Then it's no problem. Could they then make it into wicks, twist it?
Are you allowed to twist it into a wick on Shabbos?
On Yontif, if it's Erev Shabbos.
Probably. I don't see why not.
All right.
Zok to Gemara, Omer Reb Yosef, now that you're telling me this teretz, I finally understood something that I learned from the Brisa that never made sense to me. And that is, Hani de Tanina, Gimel al Gimel v'tzumtzamos. I learned a Brisa that says, it's talking about 3 by 3 exactly. So I had a Brisa that just had a blurb. It has to be exactly 3 by 3. And I had no idea what this Brisa was referring to. Below Yadana, Lama Hilchasa. I had no idea what it was referring to. And it didn't make sense to say that it was referring to the minimum shear to become Tameh, because it should have said Gimel al Gimel or bigger. Gimel al Gimel with some summary seems to say that something has to be precisely Gimel al Gimel, not bigger and not smaller. And what halacha requires such a scenario? But now it makes perfect sense. I'm sorry. So now it makes perfect sense, because the way we're learning Pshat over here, according to Rav Bar Ava, we need to be speaking about a beged that was exactly 3 by 3, so that when you light it, it loses its status of a beged. So now I know what the Brisa was talking about. Zok Gemara, the commentaries of Rav Bar Ava, since Rav Bar Ava uses Rabbi Yehuda as one of his factors that he depends on to explain the machlokes, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva, it would be logical to assume that Rav Bar Ava holds like Rabbi Yehuda, because otherwise he wouldn't use him in his explanation of the machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva. In fact, does Rav Bar Ava truly hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Rav Bar Ava says something that contradicts Rabbi Yehuda, and he said, "Nokri shechakak kav bebikas Yisrael," but nokri shechakak kav bebikas. If a goy took a piece of wood, took a log, and he chopped a chunk of wood out of the log, so that's a noilad. So Yisrael masika b'Yom Tov. The Yisrael is allowed to use it on Yom Tov. But the problem is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that piece of wood, that chunk was never there before Yom Tov, till the guy chopped it out on Yom Tov. So v'amai noilad hu, why would Rav Bar Ava allow that to be used if you hold a Rabbi Yehuda, it's noilad? So Gemara, you're right. Really, Rav Bar Ava does not hold a Rabbi Yehuda at all. He used Rabbi Yehuda to explain the Mishnah. Well, that's because he had no choice. The Devreim, the Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Akiva, Amarle, V'lei, Leisvirle. Rav Bar Ava had to use Rabbi Yehuda, that there's this concept of muksa, in order to be able to explain why Rabbi Lezer would not allow that wick to be used. Because without Rabbi Yehuda Shita, he would be able to find no explanation for it. But he argues both on Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lezer, he argues on everybody, Rav Bar Ava, and he holds like a different Tana who holds that there's no problem with this type of noilad on Shabbos and Yom Tov.
You want to hear in the Nissan?
Yeah.
Please.
Sure.
But we need the background of the Beis HaMikdash, and I want to be able to see the Ner Maravi.
How about the picture of our base measures with the Ner Tanan?
I sent you those pictures, Yosy Simon.
Yes, you did. But I don't know how to put them in my background.
I should thank Avigdor posted, for those who know how to look in the chat, Avigdor posted some references. Avigdor, are you still on the line? You must have left.
No, I'm
I
here.
see him.
You're here. So the second one you posted was a fish.
Yeah, the narwhal.
The narwhal?
The narwhal is a whale with a single tusk.
So where exactly was this big sea near the Mishkan where they picked up
The narwhal's in the North Sea, so it doesn't make it down to the Mediterranean. But I mean, you could make up all kinds of fanciful things when it says that it was hidden. Maybe a Kadosh Baruch Hu brought one down for them and then sent them back to the North Sea. It's just interesting. The only animal that we know of that has a single horn is the normal. That goes through its forehead.
Right.
All right. So I just want to thank you for posting. If you have something in, I'm working on getting a third camera in. So while Yosy speaks about something that we can pop the visual in, really that's in development.
What do you mean? I had my film today. You didn't see? You didn't see
that was fabulous.
Yeah, I was
fabulous.
And the
Yeshua.
That just means that I didn't have enough time to finish davening.
That occurred to me too.
Avigdor, what is that thing on the J post about the roof of Iran Air has a Star of David on their airplanes? Where does it have a Star of David?
What's that?
Where is the Star of David on Iran Air?
It's on the roof. So what happened was the contractor who built the Air Force building in Tehran was Israeli. And on the roof of the building, they put a massive Magen David. And it was on there for years, and nobody noticed until...
Well, that's because if they send out a guided missile looking for a Magen David, they'll catch it.
Target. Shoot here, right? There was another one in Africa. It's happened a couple of times where Israeli contractors have hidden these massive Magen Davids on roofs that nobody would have ever thought. It's just so funny.
I love it.
Funny that nobody even noticed it at an airport.
And
So
Hashem,
I'll tell you,
Hashem appreciates that humor because he put the Moshiach and Shel Yisrael in Pirate's Palace.
So it's funny if you ever have the opportunity to go up to Ripley's Aquarium. So I did a tour. Our industry association did a tour of Ripley's Aquarium, and you can go up on the roof of Ripley's Aquarium. It's a big roof, and there's a design on the roof, but you can't really see what it is. But if you go up in the CN Tower and you look down from the glass floor, you can see it's two sharks swimming like this. But when you're on the roof, you can't see it because you're standing on it. It's like, what is this weird design? But when you're up on the roof, up on the CN Tower looking down, you can see it very clearly.
Robin, all the airplanes coming into Tehran to land should have been able to see this.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's weird.
It's weird. It's weird.
Okay, by Yoim Hachi, Nosi Levei Vin Yomin Avidon Ben Gidoni, Korbanoi, Karas Kesef Achas, Shloshim Umeyo, Mishkalo, Mizrak Echot, Kesef Shim Shekel V'Shekel, HaKodesh Neim Eleim, Soilis Below Hashem and Lemincho, Kaf Achas, Azorozov Mleok, Teres, Parechot, Ben bkol, Yelechot, Keves Echot, Ben Shnosoi, Loilo, Sirizim Echot Lechatos, Ulezevach Hashlomim, Bokor Shnai, Emelim Chamisho, Atudim Chamisho, Kvosim b'nei shana chamisha zeh korban avidon ben gidoini. Yosy Simon DYlive le'aver sayishter ayom b'chastecha hagadol nishmas in kadishin d'mischadshin ketziporim mitzaptzivin mishapim mitzalin alam kadisha Yisrael. Rebbeinu Shalom tachnis v'sa'ayel hanach tzipori kadisha la'aser kadisha dismar le'ayin le'rasar le'himzu l'secha. Yosy Simon DYlive le'aver say shebi mani of the chamishevet v'nyamin shegrasi b'soras l'parsha shalonase ayom as a yor no alai kol nitzoitzin kadishim kol oris hakadoshas hakulis b'kedusha zeh shevet l'avin l'askel b'sorasecha v'yosecha l'aser shetzuncho k'mechayai ani v'zari v'zera zari me'atov adoilam amen.
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 Every day, and for the Shabbos of Gadol Drasha last night, everything was really, really. We didn't see all the stress that you had. We just saw how geschmack it was.
I was about to get in.
Any stress that Akiva had was because of me, by the way.
It's not because of you.
Yeah, it's because
Hashem.
I was.
Who kept calling you?
Me.
Oh, it was you that kept calling you?
Yeah, because I was supposed to merge the call on the other line for the overflow, and for some reason it wasn't connecting. So anyone who did not make it into the Zoom and was trying the 425 number and couldn't hear the Rav, I apologize.
It was me.
It was me.
Well, Mati, why weren't you from the MEYER Rishonim?
Yeah, I have to thank Shleima Feintuch for putting on our chat that it's starting to fill up early. So I was able to jump on early to make sure.
So all that sweat you saw pouring on Akiva's head and all of that intense look was because it wasn't joining the room.
It wasn't that, Dovi.
Yeah,
my daughter was nagging me, and I lost it a little bit on her more than usual.
Because of me.
No, because at 7:10, and Shleima already logged in, and my daughter nagged me because I promised her a Zoom meeting with one of her friends, and she said it's 7:00, and it was 7:10, and I got upset at her, and it was recorded, and Shleima heard it. And Shleima, I didn't lose it. I was a little bit shorter with
but at
her
least you
than
didn't
normally.
take off your shaitel.
Yeah, that's right.
That's crazy.
So that's why Hashem gave me a little tap on the wrist. You understand?
I have a pet peeve.
So I was your shliach to test you.
I have a pet peeve with people when people are adjusting their phones. They're going like this, and I always like to poke my eyes out. Last night, David Leibman does it a lot. He pokes my eyes out there. The whole time I'm like trying to shield myself because I feel like I'm going to poke my eyes out.
Yeah, well, a lot of the older generation that tunes in are always looking this way in the camera, like 1950s videos.
Is
from
Dave
weddings.
there? Did you see Dave's post on the share chat?
No, what he said.
The Zoom, the different 4 Zoom
Yes.
shows.
Oh, Dave's ultimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That's
awesome.
right. It's very good. Okay, we have. If anybody wants to sponsor, I'm open to be sponsored again for next week. I will. But we do have one. Meyer is again sponsoring next week's broadcast for his grandmother. Hershel used to give Kiddush on Shabbos Agudah for his mother. So this is Meyer's grandmother for next week, and Bensi Bench on Sunday. I'll send you the information for that. And if anybody has ideas on how to sell aliyahs virtually, I'm open for suggestions. But we...
well, we have to figure
I
out
told
how
you,
we're gonna
Akiva.
sell
The suggestion was to give a Misha Berach virtually.
Well, what we could do is we could say that if you buy an aliyah, you get into Dovi's 649 group.
Yeah.
That's money in the bank.
That's going to happen. Anyway, thank you very much.
Have a great Shabbos,
Yosy.
everybody.
Have a great Shabbos. I
What's
hope
the story with the Shir Matzah Shabbos?
So I guess
10:30?
last year, right, usually we have, when do we have it?
10:30.
10:30?
Okay.
10:30. Now I have to see when Meyer is doing his, so it doesn't conflict, or we'll use a different room.
I'm very upset about the Rov that he brought up the option of davening v'sikin on Shabbos. Because now, as I sleep from 5:30 to 8:30 Shabbos, I feel guilty.
I don't, because it's actually it's a time where I actually daven with my son, and actually Debbie's there too, and so I feel that's.
You daven v'sikin on Shabbos?
No, I don't, and I don't feel guilty. Not that I'm not, because I think what I'm doing, I told Akiva, my motto in my life is like Isaac b'mitzvah, pater b'mitzvah. I use that